Hey, and welcome back to the Wicked Wild Podcast. Your home of all things wilderness, wild, monster, creature, all kinds of horror movie reviews that we do here. We're glad you came to join us. It's August, so the heat is miserable and unbearable most places. But as we're going to learn and talk about tonight, it could be worse. You could be at the bottom of the ocean surrounded by sharks. So there's always a bright side. But before we get into the review, I do want to spend the time talking to the other buoys and gills that have joined me tonight.
You should be embarrassed.
And, these are my chums.
Oh my God, you're just the worst.
So we're going to say hi to a few people. We're going to start with Jaime, the shark enthusiast, the OG shark fan. How's it going, Jaime?
It's going good.
So I'm just assuming, because I've heard enough stories from you of kind of your plan and what you want to do, I just assume this is sort of a prequel documentary to you and your sister's trip that is coming.
You're right. You've heard very similar. You've heard yes, cage diving is on my bucket list. Yes, when I pass away, I want my ashes spread as chum to sharks, which Eli has taught me that we can't do that. We had this conversation.
No, but you can't be turned into a brick
reef,
on the ocean. Yeah.
Oh yeah, that's my new. That'll move. But I know what Dave's talking about, and I don't.
Now, is your sister, is she down to go cage diving with you, or does she know that she's doing this with you? Is she the Lisa in this story?
I don't know if she's cage. My sister is. My sister is the who is who in the who's Kate and who's.
That's what I'm trying to figure out. I just know it's this is.
I'm more. Unfortunately, and we'll get to the movie, I'm more of the Mandy Moore. My sister's the more impulsive.
Okay. So
adventurous. So I'd be the one, except in this situation where I want to cage up. But I'm just saying she'd be all for. She'd be more for something.
Is she impulsive, or does she also just want to get away from Mandy Moore?
I mean,
I don't know if I'd consider that impulsive.
That's not a way. She invites her with her, and we'll get there. But yeah. I mean.
And then we've also gotten, he's been sitting silently, waiting, biding his time. John, we've got John up in Michigan. So, John, how you doing?
I'm good.
Good.
It's August. What more do you want?
Exactly. It's hotter than ass out there right now.
Yeah,
so,
I'm good.
Let me ask you a question. Serious answers only, obviously. But
obviously,
are you taking a shark cage into chum-infested waters where you know there's great whites swimming around? Or front row tickets to a One Direction concert?
Oh, well, I guess I'm going to see One Direction.
Don't want to have anything to do with the sharks.
How could you pass that up?
Let me rethink this real quick. Is Matthew Modine operating the rusty wench and cage that I'd be going in, or are we talking about top of the line, like military grade, like cage?
No, it's a rusty cast.
Oh, absolutely! I'm going to One Direction all day. This is. I am way more risk averse than these two impulsive women.
And I don't really think you're thinking about it. Do you want to die by being eaten by great whites, which is wicked heavy metal, right? Or is it going to be embarrassing when they put in your eulogy? Yes, he was trampled to death by a bunch of teens as they were rushing the stage to touch whatever those losers' names are.
I don't even think they're a band anymore, are
they?
No,
whatever. They have stupid songs anyways.
Shows you what I know. I was just trying to pick something. And then we've got Eli, the displaced expatriate West Virginian up in PA. So I've got a question for you, Eli. I thought a lot about this. So
yeah,
I want serious answers only, of course.
Yeah, of course.
So Matthew Modine hands you the cable and tells you to dive into great white waters you've been chumming for the last hour to save two American tourists that you already hate. So what's your move?
I go, okay.
No comprendo.
No habla inglés. And then when he turns to look at the other guy, that's when I give him the old off the boat, and I'm like, they never showed up for work. We've been fishing. Let's go home.
You throw the cable after him and wish him luck?
Oh, hell yeah.
Go
obviously, because this is all off the books. No one's going to know. and if you're with me, say you're the other guy, Dave. They want us to swim in the great white water. And we're like, are you going to turn me in? No, I don't think so.
Yeah, I don't think any of these gigs pay good enough to make me jump.
No, I mean, look at the state of that boat and cage. Like, I mean, if I had to guess, those people were paid in like a peanut butter sandwich. I don't even know why they were working for that guy. I mean, obviously, they must have been just dredges of society, and that's like the only place I'd hire them, because it's like, well, I'm all off the books. Look at my boat. It looks like a rusty, like,
what do you
rotted
think's
out
going to
bucket.
happen?
Yeah. One of us will die on this boat.
Well, on that note, we're going to let Eli share some real news that might put you in the same state of mind as he gives us this week's Wicked Whisper.
When we talked about doing this little news segment, I thought, there's probably going to be a lot of dry weeks. There's not that much. And fucking 2023, just the year that keeps on giving. I got 2 news stories for you. One, I think, is a little bit light, that try to bring some light in this darkness. And 2, will put you in the same mood I am, where I'm like, any day now, I just wish an actor would hit, prevent all this. I'll let you guys know. What do you want to hear first? Do you want to hear a little bit of light, a little bit of dark?
I think we're all numb at this point. John, you got an opinion? Oh, he's muted.
Yep, you're mute.
Yeah, that's what happens. Yep. Got fans going over here.
Yeah, but you want to hear the light news or the dark news, John?
I say let's go with we'll start dark and end on light, just because we're forced into a position.
Just because this is the year that we all are going to die by our alien overlords. Believe it or not, aliens are the news again.
What?
So, as we all know, it seems like every week I'm talking about, the military coming out and NASA coming out about these UFO reports and things like that. And then last time, as you remember, there was that whistleblower. Well, another one of the government programs where they got all these experts and things to work with NASA and the Department of Defense about these aliens things. They're kind of looking into this stuff. And the one guy came out and he's like, I can't go into a lot of it, but I will say at this point, based on what we've seen, it is now in the Department of Defense's ball court to disprove extraterrestrial life, because nothing that they have shown us so far proves they're not real. And everybody was like, what does that mean? That's up to them. And people were like, that's odd. And then the hero none of us really wants, or I don't even know if they're actually going to be a hero, because it's, when America started, it was they always say it was like lightning strike. All these great men and women were around at one time to create America,
including George Bunnyman Washington,
including him. And this is not the time for that anymore. Marco Rubio, who was working with that one whistleblower,
he's the best we got.
No, apparently, has been pulling bipartisan Democrats and Republican senators into this. Like, you got to listen to this guy. And while he was doing that, more whistleblowers have stepped forward, and some who have told them things, but will not. They're like, it is unsafe for me to become a whistleblower, but have told them and showed them things. Him and this group of senators came out and said, we really need the Department of Defense to come forward and talk about this, because currently we do not comprehend or understand the ramifications of what all this means, and we don't know what to do with these whistleblowers. So they're literally like, we got whistleblowers from this department, and they've told us shit so scary about aliens that we need the people they're telling on to come help us. That's where we're at.
Please come tell us this isn't real.
That's where we're at. So, like, it's a game over, people. Just imagine you're watching Independence Day, Marco Rubio's president. It's a wholly different movie, right? That's a Will Smith isn't there. It's like some other clown no one's ever heard about. It's terrible, right? So yeah, before this end of the year, if we're not left on a waterless planet because the aliens came and stole our water, we're all going to be shot by lasers and died, like in Mars Attack. So that's what you have to look for this year. Now, can I tell you my other lightning news story that might bring a smile to all your faces?
Sweet, let's do it.
Please, for the love of God, yeah.
Hey, it's been a while, but Mr. Bigfoot showed up in the news this week.
Yes.
Yay. A man went to authorities to file police reports as he stated that he was driving through New Hampshire and was driving through a heavily wooded area. when he really had to pee. So it was a rural area, no one around. He's like, I'll just pull off the side of the road, walk up into the woods a little bit, pee on a tree. And as he was peeing, he noticed rocks were being thrown at him. So he said he turned and looked, and a little ways away was a 7-foot tall primate throwing rocks at him while he was peeing, trying to hit him. While he was peeing, he got scared and hurried up, rushed to his car, drove off, contact authorities. So now they're searching for Bigfoot in the area because they're like, he was that close. He couldn't have gotten that far. They have yet to find Bigfoot or his rocks to throw against people who pee on trees. So, hey, there's a little smile for you before the aliens come and execute us all. Yeah.
Well, I guess Sasquatches do go through the teenage years too, where you just got to mess with people.
Well, do you think it was like a teenage thing, or he was like, "Hey, this prick is pissing in my lawn. Like, get out of here! Get out of here! Get out of here!"
Like trying to chase a squirrel away. Yeah, that's true.
Because my whole thing is, right, I mean, I don't know about you, Dave, but where I grew up, it was all like dirt roads, and I'm not, like, if you had to stop and pee, you didn't have to go in the woods. No one was coming.
Yeah,
you could
the
literally
roadside
just hang out
restroom
your
was
car and just piss in the ditch. No one was coming. And if they did, that's not the first time they saw that. They didn't give a shit.
Exactly. It was not news for sure.
Yeah, he's gone up pissing in Bigfoot's yard.
Well, so even Bigfoot has changed his ways. Maybe he knows something we don't.
I think the world's getting a darker place, when you can't even trust Bigfoot not to throw rocks to while you pee. You got the aliens are coming. Mothman's for some reason over in Russia, so like apparently he turned against us.
Or maybe that's good for us.
Choosing. Well, maybe, I don't know. I don't know. It's a weird time to be alive.
Well, thank you for continuing to dig up the truth that our readers, our listeners need to hear. So
I sacrifice my sanity for you all every week.
Yeah,
and I do it with a burdened heart.
I have to say, and I think Jaime and I, we talked about this a little bit when you were out roaming the woods for a couple of weeks there, and I was looking up stuff. It completely changed the analytics, the algorithms for browsers.
Yeah.
So I can't even imagine the 3-ring circus that your Google search is.
There are things I will never be able to share with anybody. Things I've seen that you can't unsee.
Rubio is watching, I think is what we've learned.
Listen, it's the shittiest Batman movie ever made. That's what's happening right now in real time. It's the shittiest Batman movie. It's like, you know what? It's not bad. It's like Zod has come to the planet, right? They're like, oh, we need a hero, and like Pee Wee Herman walks up, and goes, "Is it my time?" And then we're all like, "Oh, we're fucked." Okay, cool.
Time to auger this planet in.
No one follow him into a theater.
Well, on that note, we will go on to our on-the-fly synopsis before we get into that conversation. This is the segment of the show where one of our hosts, and they don't know which one, is going to be called upon to give a synopsis for the movie we watched for this week. And John, you were our synopsizer last week, so you're going to be my question partner on this one.
Awesome.
And this is a very simple one. So who are you going sharking with? Are you going sharking with Quint, with Captain Taylor, or with Carter Blake? Captain Taylor from this movie, Carter Blake from Deep Blue Sea. I don't think Quint needs an introduction.
There's only one answer that I'll accept that I am. Only one.
Oh my God.
You're
not Quint, that's Dave.
Well, I personally only have one decision. It's only Quint for me.
If you're going out on the Orca, huh?
Of course.
Well, she's wearing the shirt, and there is no question. Quint.
Which one am I?
Jaime.
What? Wait, which one am I?
You're Eli.
Oh, you son of a bitch.
Well, and this was an easy one. I knew who John was going to pick, because which one of us is not going to pick Quint? It just happened that the person that I had assigned to Quint is literally wearing her own merch.
Obviously.
Okay, on the fly. This is an easy one. Two sisters are in Mexico because one of their boyfriends called them boring. So apparently what you do is you flee the country to somewhere else to have a good time but be miserable the whole time. So two sisters are in Mexico. They meet at a night of partying when they decide they're just going to have fun. They meet two guys. They're all having a great time. The guys tell them they should go cage diving, right? Like I think the guys literally that's what they sell them on, to see some sharks. The girls make the worst decision to go out on a boat with strangers that they just met. And not that it's a stranger's fault, but that is just a very poor decision amongst many made in this movie. And then whilst cage diving, they have an accident more than once and they get stuck 47 meters down on the ocean floor, rinse and repeat 3 times through this movie. That's it. That's where I'm going to stop.
We keep getting pinned. All right. So Eli, break it down for us. What do you think of 47 meters down?
I don't really like this movie. When I originally saw it, it was a theater watch, and I'm not going to say who dragged me to theater watches, but I was told by this person who I'm not going to name, who said, I saw the trailer. It looks like a decent shark movie, and I believe they still like this movie. Not going to name who they are
do.
or their bad choices.
She does.
So we're like sitting in theaters, and
I believe.
Yeah, she does. This movie's on all the time
100%.
in our house.
Yeah, she made it.
It's in rotation, the same 4 fucking movies we watch all the time. So I'm in theaters, I'm sitting there. Strike one, Mandy Moore's in it. I do not know why. I don't listen, it's nothing against her. I'm sure she's a sweet person. She tries her hardest. I have yet to see Mandy Moore in a role that hasn't made me want to stab myself in the eyes. Even Scrubs. I love Scrubs. Hated her like 2-episode arc. Wanted it to end. And so I see her in it, and like she's just like, and like every role, she's so whiny and like, my husband thinks I'm boring, and now I have to come on this trip because I'm boring and sad. And you're like, all right, whatever.
Boyfriend,
So
not even husband. I'm sorry, it makes her more pathetic. But anyway,
even worse. So I'm like sitting in theaters, I'm like, don't like it. So then we get to like the concept with the shark, right? And like, it was all right. I like the idea of like, okay, you're stuck in this cage. It's dark. So like the shark was kind of coming in and out of nowhere. That's kind of cool. That's kind of creepy. I dig it. Don't really care about the sisters. Hate, I should have known, because Mandy Moore, I think, is probably the biggest name in this movie, which that's all I have to tell you if you're wondering what this movie's like. Is she's like the hero. And then you get to the twist ending.
Oh, are we discussing that now?
I don't have to spoil it, but when I get to the twist ending, I was never so pissed off in a theater because like this was literally for nothing. You know what probably happened? I guess this is a little spoiler. They want to make you think one thing about the sister. No, she killed herself because she got tired of being around Mandy Moore. That's how this movie ends. They don't want to tell you that. They don't want to tell you the quiet part out loud. That's what it is. It was just so bad. And if I remember, it wasn't too far off from, what was that shark movie that had Ryan Reynolds' wife in?
The Shallows. I like
Shallows.
that one. See, I like that one.
The Shallows is fine. But like The Shallows was such, like, it's weird, like comparing, because they came out real close to each other.
Well, there's a reason I have a fact on that.
Oh, nice. Whereas like The Shallows kind of did it right. And then 47 years down, I mean, kind of like it's not like, it's not no
stuck
Jaws,
with
but,
sharks. No, but
right.
it's a similar.
The shark looked cool. It looked beat up and stuff. This had a cool concept of like, oh, sharks in the dark, shat on it, and then made a shitty sequel, which is more shitty sharks in the dark.
Aren't those zombie sharks though?
The cave sharks.
At least the second one. The second one actually.
It's real.
It's
all real. But they do that same. The other thing too, what I hate is like, the Meg came out after this, correct? Or did the Meg come out before this?
Probably.
The Meg was after, for sure.
Okay, that's what I thought, because I'm pretty sure the guy that wrote the Meg watched this, like the kind of final battle with the sharks, and just the pure fucking absurdity and nonsense of the whole situation was like, oh, that'd be really good in a movie about Jason Statham karate chopping a shark.
Yeah, the Meg came out the next year.
Yeah, and so he's like, oh, let's use that in the Meg. You're gonna karate chop the shark and like have this battle of proportions and Matrix slow-mo, Jason Statham. It's like, oh, where did you get this idea? He's like, from the worst Mandy Moore movie in the world. But so yeah, it's not, like I said, I really wish they would have expanded on the concept. Like it was kind of the cool sharks in like the dark, not able to see them like missiles, like because there scenes where like they came in quick, like missile, like I was like, oh wow, that would be scary. Not as scary as being stuck in a cage 47 years down with Mandy Moore. The only way to end that sadness is just pull the oxygen cord, let her go. That's what I think of that movie.
Fair enough.
Loved it.
All right, Jaime. Weigh in here.
I have to follow it. So I didn't see this in theaters, and I'm just going to start with this little fact because I had to go looking for it because I could swear that this movie was released on VOD or was The Shallows did so well that they put this out theatrically. 2, and this is the one I always thought, Mandy Moore had just been in This Is Us, which blew up. So they took Mandy Moore's success, threw out a movie that was filmed before This Is Us, from what I believe, and like threw it in theaters because Mandy Moore had just blown up in one of the most popular television series to hit television. Point being is I did not see this because I thought it was going direct to streaming. I had no interest in it. It did not look like something I wanted to see. At this point, I've seen it more times than I care to have, which is only like 3 or 4, but it's 3 too many if that's the case. Like once is okay on this movie. I don't loathe or hate this movie because there's moments I hate, don't get me wrong, but I don't think overall I have like the visceral, like I don't hate it enough there's no substance to this movie. I was not joking when I said rinse and repeat. At least 3 things that they do twice and want you to fall for it 6 times then. It's like this isn't even a spoiler. Oh, okay, the whole plot is the cage breaks and it falls 47 meters down. Guess what? We're going to fucking do that again when we try and get them out and drop it again. And it's like, that happens numerous times because there's no plot in this movie besides them being stuck at the bottom of the ocean, which I get as a thin plot, but then you got to come up with something else there and make it more creative because for something that's not even a long movie, it feels so long and daunting to get through, especially like rewatching it when you've already seen it and you know most of the beats.
True. Oh my god, it's like this is the most in sync we've ever been.
I know. I'm so happy
at one point while we're in theaters, I turned to a third person and I go, "Are we watching the fucking Titanic? Why is this so long?"
And it's not. It's like an hour and 20 something minutes or an hour and a half. I don't know, like something like that when I looked at the bar today.
Well, time feels differently in hell.
Oh, it really does. So like, it's just the ending, which we won't spoil yet, makes me angry. And I have a whole paragraph on why it makes me angry and why another movie does it fantastic. And this movie does it like shit. So, it's just that there's nothing to this for me. Yes, Mandy Moore's annoying. Is she so annoying that it makes me like hate her? No, she's very whiny in the beginning. I get that the reality of this situation, you probably would be as panicked as Mandy Moore, but I don't need it in a movie because this is fake and this is a movie. And she just annoys me. It just becomes like grating with how like the breathing and the panic. And it's like, I'm like, okay, like I don't need to listen to her have a panic attack. But, so we're going to get into like specifics of it and why, but there's like one cool scene, like you were saying with the dark, when they pull the flare, that might be the only, you might think, oh, this might make up for the movie, but then you realize that's during the shit ending and it does not make up for what's happening in the movie. So, it's a movie at this point. Let's hope that this is the last time I have to watch this movie because I just don't want to sit through it anymore. It's not fun enough to even sit through. Like,
so jealous of you right now.
Jealous of me?
Yeah, because
it'll be my last time.
The last time. It will not be for me
ever.
I will be on my deathbed, and this will be in the background, and I'll be going. Ah!
I just want to say though, Eli, to our point, the fact that this was going direct to video doesn't bode well for how it was doing with either test audiences or whatever they do to movies now. That and maybe it's the ending, or maybe they changed it, whatever. But something audiences were not a big fan of and said that, but then they were just Mandy Moore's and This Is Us. Let's
fuck it. Let's make a sequel about.
Well, she's not in it.
Aztec cave sharks.
Yeah, they're zombie sharks. At least those have something to them.
Oh, we'll put that on demand, right? No, theaters, because you know why?
I went to theaters.
Yeah, I was there the day it came out.
These are like mom stories.
Surely this concept can't get any worse. Spoiler alert, it does.
It gets better when it gets worse. It's like one of those movies that, like, if you're gonna go, you go silly, and then you're like, okay, at least like But I've only seen the second one, I think, once or something. So I
So
can't.
jealous of you. I'm so jealous.
Even the
I know.
second one.
I think the second one was part of Sharkathon too, wasn't
I
it?
think it was. I think we watched
They
both of
both
them.
were.
That's why I have seen this at least one more times than I would care to.
It was.
And then
Yes.
I don't remember the second one.
Oh, you know what? This may shock you. A lot of people didn't tune in for those two. Shocking. But you know who was there?
You.
This guy.
And you even had to fake a smile while you watched it.
The whole time.
All right, John, your turn.
Well,
3 for 3. Do you hate this too?
I don't hate it. It's a movie. I had the lowest of low expectations when I first watched this movie, and I was like, "That's better than I was expecting." It's not great. It's not when you say good. It's a movie. It has some cool shark. I would say the shark effects in it. I was surprised how good they were. Even this time around, I was like, "Okay, it's pretty good." However, the thin plot. Matthew Modine is I don't know. It felt like I was playing a video game, and Matthew Modine was doing like voiceover for your character,
which he pretty much was. Yeah,
like it was almost like Metal Gear Solid, and he's playing like the general and your Snake. Except Snake is now 2 women at the bottom of the ocean, and it's way worse. And there's no cool villains. It's just sharks, multiple sharks, no cool shark deaths. That was the one thing. No, nothing really viscerated anybody. It was, and see, that's the other thing. If you would have amped up the body count, like these were some crazy killer sharks, I mean, that would have been, it's been something, but it's fine. I think personally, this is probably like a good, like baby's first horror movie. Like if they got nothing better, because not really much happens. There's not really much blood. But if I had to go, I'd probably prefer to give them Jaws. If I had to foist any sort of shark movie on somebody, because Jaws is just a classic. However, I mean, to me, this falls in line with Eli's favorite movie ever, Antlers. For me, it is a movie. I would not say this one is fine. I would say this one is okay. I think Antlers is fine.
Don't you ever say that sentence in front of me.
Antlers is fine, Eli.
People are allowed to have opinions, Eli.
You're dead to me.
We've all hated movies someone else has loved.
I'm gonna bury you right next to that movie.
Wow. Okay. Eli's feeling extra spicy.
I am. Because I had to watch this again.
See,
Now,
Eli.
what he's angry about is he knows he's got to keep watching this.
Well, can I just share something though?
Sure.
I don't think you have to, unless there's something I'm unaware of with a controlling aspect in this relationship. Just do something else. Play on your phone. Go on the computer.
But
play
like
a game.
I hear it.
Use
like
your
I do
Put
that.
on headphones.
But you don't understand. Like I come upstairs and it's on the TV again.
Why are we watching 47 meters down so much in your house?
I don't. It's because it's on rotation.
No, but why is this part of the rotation? If you would have told me I would. If you told me she watches The Office like nonstop, like front to back,
like
all the time.
Rotation.
But
That's
especially this time of year, as far as the summer horror, this is the time of year you'd be watching it.
Summer, winter, fall, solstice. Name a day and a time and a place. It's probably on.
Now, does this get watched more, or does Shark Night get watched more?
Oh man,
that's another bad one. I don't know which one's worse in those two movies, to be honest.
I'd say probably Shark Night.
Okay,
is worse.
That's what I would have guessed.
On more.
It's on more. It's on more. But then you'll hit this weird thing, and like this is on like 2 or 3 times. You're like, why? Why are we watching?
So for me, and I am going to name drop. I have this friend. Her name is Mary, and she loves all horror movies around sharks. Like it's the subgenre that she loves, and I love any sort of creature feature. And we talked about this with Cocaine Bear, especially creature features that are a real creature that has rules and stuff like that. I can get into that. Well, my friend Mary, who I think you all might know, a couple of years ago, she hosted what was called Sharkathon, and we watched a bunch of her favorite horror movies. And I had not seen this in theaters, but I'd watched this once before Sharkathon. when another podcast, Bloody Good Horror, they had reviewed it, and I'd listened to their review and enjoyed kind of what they had said about it. So I watched it and didn't think much about it. And then when we watched it for Sharkathon, I really sat and watched it, and I was surprised how much I enjoyed that viewing of it. And again, I had a good time because we were all watching it together. It was most people here on the Wicked Wild, and then Mary and some other friends. We were doing the Sharkathon together, but I really enjoyed it. But what really surprised me is even having seen it once before, how effective the thrills and the tension were for me. And I'll explain, for me, and I think even each of you have mentioned it as, I didn't like the movie, but the environment, the atmosphere of this movie is really well designed. Like watching a 20-foot shark appear 5 feet in front of you and then disappear into the gloom of deep sea, that was incredibly effective for me. But I'm also somebody who, everybody has the one kind of death that you're most reactive to. Well, drowning is mine. Drowning is my big death fear. The claustrophobia, this disorientation, the choking, everything about drowning, Dave's against. Well, this movie it really plays into those things, the air supply, the fact that you're in open ocean, but you can only see 5 feet in front of you. That's used really effectively. It's some of the best underwater environments I've seen in a movie, at least in my opinion. So I really enjoyed that. I loved when the sharks, like I said, would just appear, or you would just see a silhouette, or your mind would start playing tricks on you. And the more times I've watched it, and now I watch this about once a year, this time of year in the summer, it's one of my summer horror movies. There are little silhouettes that you don't notice until you've seen the movie several times, but little silhouettes of a fin or something like that happening way off in the background where your mind is trying to make images. But I really enjoy that part of it. Now, I will 100% agree the third act of this movie is a mess. Totally get it. And the two leads are just unlikable. Both of the leads are just kind of hard to be kind of tethered to for it. But what makes them annoying, and Jaime, to your point, she is incredibly annoying. She's always whimpering and whining and hyperventilating and scaring, and it is frustrating and annoying. But that's also probably pretty realistic for somebody as unexperienced as her being in a situation like that. That's probably what it'd be like. And then I start thinking about, a lot of the things that Kate does, like a lot of the risks that she takes is probably because her sister is freaking the F out, and she's kind of being pushed into this role of the two of them, she's the most capable, and she's barely capable. She actually is scuba certified, or at least given a sense that she's dove before. But like getting out of the cage and going up and communicating, all this stuff where she puts herself in harm's way, it's almost as if she's being pushed to do that because Lisa is almost catatonic in her stress level at that point. So,
or did she?
Well, and because it's Kate's fault. I mean,
yeah, that's true too.
Kind of. It's both their faults for being morons. I'm sorry. You don't get yourself in this situation in the first place. But
yeah, you don't see that boat and go, yeah, I'm in.
Not only that, you don't lie. When someone says, "Are you scuba?" Like, listen, I like do silly things. Seeing a shark is on my bucket list. But if the first thing they ask me on a survey, first of all, I'm going with the most renowned, expensive place on the island. I don't care. But if the first thing they ask me is, "Are you scuba certified to do this?" I say, "No, I'm not," because no, thank you. I don't want to die doing it. Like, no, thank you. And they're just like, And then she literally asked what the air is or whatever.
Yeah. Well, and then when the captain is kind of quizzing her or filling her out to see how experienced she was, it was obvious to him and to us as the audience, he knows she's not certified. He knows that she doesn't have a clue how to dive, but he still lets her get in the cage.
No, he's getting money.
So who's really responsible?
Yeah. Dave, I bet you that man owed back taxes to the IRS from the 80s, and it was 4 alimony checks a month.
It's true. So, but as an overall thought, this is one that I do enjoy watching, but I totally recognize the things that it triggers in me probably don't hit for a lot of people, but because drowning is something that I'm impacted by, and we talked about it, and we'll talk about it more in a minute. I do appreciate the behavior of the great whites in this. And Jaime and I talked a little bit about this earlier today. The great whites are not quote unquote villainous in this movie. Their behavior is not outside the realm of how an actual great white would, to the point, and I think a couple of y'all complained about it. There's no big murders in this movie. There's some bites, which is what a great white does. It does like these test bites. And in both of the cases where there's an attack, the only attack that I think we're to assume the kill is the guy who comes down with the secondary cable, but we never even see that. We don't even know, did he drown or something else? And they're just assuming he was shark attacked. But other than the hallucination, which I'm going to let our synopsizer go ahead and give us the twist in a minute, the way the sharks behaved in this, I'm totally okay with signing off on.
Well, I would say this. I am fine with you having accurate sharks, but then have an interesting story to keep me along. But you can't have realistic sharks who, like, there are some interesting things they do. But once again, I'm at a point where I don't give a fuck about the characters, don't give a fuck about their plight because they're boring. And
they're terrible.
But to the comparison that was made earlier with the Shallows, the great white in the Shallows was pretty much Michael Myers
100%
with a fin. But I mean, he was not acting like a great white.
No, I 100% agree with you. And I would say with the Shallows is the story is not interesting enough to make me give a fuck. That was a cool shark. So I gave a fuck a little bit more. Whereas, hey, I'm all about accurate great whites. Well, then make your story interesting. And this had hardly no story.
No, there is no story to this.
Like, to me, it's almost like you're like, hey, let's go to this buffet. And I'm like, oh, awesome. What do they have? They're like, no foods you like, but they don't put shit in it. And I'm like, oh.
And you can eat all you want.
Yeah. I'm like, can we go somewhere else? No. And I'm like, oh, okay.
Like, maybe they should have, instead of Mandy Moore's motivation, I know I keep harping on this and I'm kind of joking, instead of Mandy Moore's motivation being her boyfriend broke up with her, like, why didn't they establish these girls' relationships? Like, you got sisters. So, like, that could pull at some people. That could pull at me. That's like, someone who has a sister, your best friends. Like, why didn't they even play that relationship up? Whether it was the competitive aspect, like, you get that in a sentence, like, oh, that, like, Mandy Moore was comparing herself to her younger sister, but, like, the younger sister didn't seem to have that competition, and it was like an internal struggle for Mandy Moore. We barely know that besides a one sentence about it was her relationship. Guys, I can't. Her relationship was the only good thing she had, right, or something like that. The only thing she did right. Please.
Yeah, that motivation is razor
so thin. And it's like, and it's like, why didn't we just go on the girls' relationship? Like, why? Yeah. Maybe this was a trip to repair their relationship. That could have been a way big. It's still not a full storyline, but that could have at least been a bigger motivation or made me feel something towards the end, and like something more than two obnoxious girls. One's motivation is to get back at her boyfriend to show she's interesting and fun. Like, it was just like, right. They even bring it up when they're like half dying. Like, what would, I forget his name, what would so-and-so think, Stuart? I don't know, I'm making that up. What's his name think of you now? Like, really? That's what we're discussing at 47 meters
I don't
on the bottom
give
of
a
the fucking
crap.
floor? Yeah,
right.
Like, and that's what we're talking about.
To your point, Jaime, like, okay, so like they're boring, and then all the threats though were tied to the sharks. Give us other threats. Make it more survival.
Yeah, I don't think it was just the sharks. I think the depth and the air were a much bigger tension than the sharks were.
Which they could have easily. Well, but the thing is, though, they could have easily fixed that, but they couldn't because of the sharks. So that's what I mean. Like, all the terrain, that labyrinth was kind of cool, and like that'd been cooler. I think they just got lost in it, but that labyrinth was a threat because of the sharks.
Yeah.
So all they tied every threat so closely to the sharks. So like the story wasn't good, and like the sharks were accurate, but that's not enough now to carry that film in my mind. So I'm still left with just
what if, like, so
whatever.
The ocean, to Dave's point earlier, I'm not like, I don't really think of the worst ways to go. Drowning is up there, any kind of suffocation or losing, but the ocean is a terrifying fucking place. Now, a few of us just got back from vacation, and like, I'm not a big ocean goer, but I have a rule when I go in the ocean. So first of all, Turks and Caicos, which is where I was, is known where I was staying because the water stays waist high, like far in, which is kind of scary because you can go like fairly far out, but still be only like waist high. And you're like, okay, but I have a rule when I go in the ocean, which is not often because I hate salt water and my hair and things like that. But I don't ever want to be the shark's first option. So someone always has to be further than me out in the ocean. This is a real rule I have when I actually go in.
There has
Someone
to be easier prey.
Further out, yes. Because at least he'll see them first, hopefully, unless he's coming from a different angle. I get it. There's technicalities and like logistics that go into this. The ocean is a terrifying place. So this is all what I'm trying to say is, what if they end up 47 meters down? And I don't know what the other option is. This is where a story writer.
Get lost
what
in
if
the
they
dark?
have other? But and what if they have other shit? What if it's not just sharks? The ocean is fucking terrifying. What if it is other things in the ocean? And I'm not saying you pull every creature, but I'm just saying, like, what if there's other things? Because a lot of people are afraid of the ocean. It's really, we don't know what the fuck's down there.
Exactly.
So what if like it had, I'm not saying made up creatures, but just other things that scare you about the ocean. And I get they did the air. They tried to do the air. It never really got there for me. But like running out of the air.
Anything.
What if they do something? I'm not saying
right.
like the sharks is the main thing, but what if, as they're trying to get away from the sharks, there's like some other aspect to it that has to do with being in the
thought it'd been terrifying if they got lost in the darkness of
gets
it.
Lost, right? Doesn't she say, I can't find my way back, or I don't know which way I
but
came
like
from,
that lasted all of like 2 seconds. But like actually,
that's because it's in the ending part.
Well, so it's not. Yes,
I didn't even get there. Yeah,
but like it's like having get lost. That would have been terrifying if like they were surrounded so much by darkness they don't know left, right, up, down. That could be really terrifying. But once again, instead of just letting the darkness kind of be the villain in some of those scenes, they directly tied to the sharks because the whole time, I mean, there was one where she's like crawling on the floor, and there was a 20, what almost looked like a 40-foot great white shark that had been any close to the bottom of the floor but eating fucking sand. And so they tied it. It was always the shark. But if you're not going to make the shark part exciting, then give me more stuff to be afraid of if the story's not going to carry me through.
Well, and I think the plot device that was underutilized for me was the depth they were at, the friggin' title of the movie. I mean, 47 meters down, that's a lot of professional, regular scuba certified divers don't go that deep. That's over 150 foot deep. You need specialized equipment to do that. So the pressure and the depth and all the things biologically that's doing with you, which they kind of talked about with nitrogen narcosis and all of that kind of stuff, but it never felt fully realized to me because, and we talked about this when we talked about Underwater. That was a movie that very much used the depth and the pressure and everything very effectively. Another movie that I love, The Abyss, because Dave's a glutton for punishment, being afraid of drowning. I watch all of these movies, but The Abyss does a fantastic job of talking about the cold and the depth and the pressure and what it does to your body when you're in it, which I think could have been done really well, but it never felt like that was a real threat to them the way it could have been.
No, and I think maybe part of it is it's again it has to do with your limitations, but how it's shot. Like I more felt like they're at the bottom of a pool. I never felt like they're 47 meters down. And to your point, like Underwater, which we talked about, like felt deep and felt dark. This feels like they're lit because we're watching a movie. How are we going to see what the fuck the girls are doing unless this is? But like technically, they should be in blackness, and it should feel a lot more claustrophobic than it does and a lot scarier than it does, but they're lit all the time. So it's very hard for me to suspend that disbelief. I get that they're all the way at the bottom of the ocean because they're sitting there under lights and they're well lit to be. And so I get it. So the scene with the flare looks really cool. But even if you think back on that, they are still very well lit in that scene. It's just that you zoom out and it shows all blackness around them. But anytime we're on the girls, you're just hyper aware that they're not 47.
They're perfectly lit,
that they're not at the bottom of the ocean, which maybe that simple thing, and I don't know how you do it. I get it, but maybe that simple thing would make this all feel so much more visceral or whatever for me. But it's just like.
And the first time I saw this movie, when the cage first hits the ocean floor, we have a close-up of Lisa's face, Mandy Moore's face, and she's got blood coming out her nose and out of her ears, and her mask is literally filling with blood. Well, that's accurate. I mean, if you're at that depth with that particular gear, which is not meant for that, you would start hemorrhaging. Mm-hmm. And they could have kept that as a thing. Like, if we're going to die down here just because we're too deep.
Why do they get the bends from going up and not coming down?
because it's when you're going up, it's when you go down, the nitrogen fills up.
Yeah, your
so
blood boils when you go up.
Yeah.
Okay. I just didn't, because I'm just like, my brain, I don't know how this works. And I'm just thinking you're doing the same thing essentially in a way.
I know, because when you're going down, the nitrogen's not in your blood yet.
Okay.
That process of going down is how that nitrogen gets in your blood.
Okay. So then going up too fast, then.
And then that's when you need to do it slowly so it gets out, which once again, that wasn't Ben's. They didn't utilize that at all because they
didn't.
Which once again, was it real? And then, like, to your point, that hemorrhaging thing, that was like 2 seconds, and they're like, "Oh, we're fine." Hypothermia. Okay. There's all these things they could have done, which could have helped, which would have made the realism of the sharks a lot more interesting. Because now, you're surrounded by
on top of all of this crap,
right? And then, like, your oxygen's an issue, and this, like, the Freddy Krueger nightmare sickness, or whatever the fuck you got, like, all these things, like, this is a terrifying environment. Whereas what they did was they're like, we're going to make realistic sharks, but we're going to tie every threat that the solution can't be done because of these sharks. But these sharks aren't like the villains, as you say. But then there's that scene with the flare where it's like, for some reason, 900 sharks are like coming after.
I think 3 giant sharks.
Well, but you know what I mean? Like, it's like they're racing for the last chicken leg in a fucking fridge. Like, so it's like this weird, like, it's the threat. That's probably one of the things that most frustrating this movie is, like, they did not develop, like, kind of the threat level or the threat of the situation. Like, they're like sharks when they had all this other stuff that could have made the story more interesting. There's like, how do we explain this? Shark, just a shark. Shark's there. Shark.
Well, we've talked.
I was going to say
we've try a synopsis.
Yeah, we've talked around the biggest problem with this movie. So let's finish the synopsis. Give us the big problem.
Yeah, so I'm trying to keep it short because then we'll talk about why it doesn't work. Like, right. They basically, and I'm not this short. I'll say this first. They basically pull the descent on us. However, and the descent does it flawlessly, in my opinion, and most of ours. We all like the descent, but however, this movie not only pulls the descent on us, you basically find out, and I will even say what happens though, but that the last 25, 30 minutes, I don't know, it feels like longer, of the movie is that hallucination. So now anything exciting that kind of happens in this movie was a hallucination. So yes, I guess her sister did get like bonked by the shark. You don't even see what happens to her. She gets like head butted by a shark. Fine. From that point on, basically everything in this movie is fake.
Yeah, when she switches tanks.
Okay, yeah. So in the fake, what we do see, so the way we think this movie is playing out and ending is she finds her sister all cut up, all bit up, and she rescues her sister, and she says, we're going to get out of this. And then she's like, but we have to get you up. Now, they're supposed to be waiting for help, but they're not. And like, that's it. Like, now finally, Lisa is going to take the, right, Dave? Lisa? Yep. Lisa's going to do something to make herself
be useful. The hero.
And it's going to be a character arc, and she's going to come to, and she's going to help her sister now and like get her sister out of this situation. And they're going to come up, but they're going to get the bends. And we've been warned a million times about the bends. So we got to go slowly. And that's the scene that we're all talking about being real cool with the flare. That's then, and like, they got to get away from sharks. And then it gets even more absurd because Mandy Moore gets bit not once, but twice and pulled down by a shark, maybe 3 times.
I think
pulled down by a shark. And like, blah, blah, blah. And they get to the boat and it's a sister moment and they're holding hands and they've survived and blah, blah, blah. And then all of a sudden you're back underwater and none of that just happened. Now.
It's all nitrogen narcosis hallucination.
Yes. I couldn't remember the word. I was going to say nitrous, like fucking Fast and the Furious. So it's like to put a whole ending, like it literally is so ridiculous to me that it feels like it was a rewrite. Like it feels like you sent a movie to production, you finished it, and the happy ending for some reason did not work, which I'm going to talk about that too. So instead, you tack on a bittersweet, depressing ending to a movie that doesn't warrant that ending. Now, The Descent warrants that ending. The Descent is a fantastic movie. It's emotional. It's impactful. It's got a lot of shit going on. This movie, to our point, has no plot. I barely care about anything in this movie. I barely care about the girl's relationship or whatever. But so why not just give me the happy ending? Like, this is the kind of movie that just deserves the 2 girls to get away, because that's just what this movie is.
Yeah.
But instead,
but this bummer ending gets twisted again, though.
When?
which
Why?
is really frustrating because then you're back at the bottom of the ocean, but then you hear Captain Taylor come over and say the Coast Guard's coming, just sit tight, and then the Coast Guard rescues her.
And they swim,
don't they?
swim down there. So here's my frustration, right?
She lives, doesn't she?
What's the problem though?
Well,
Either give me the bummer or give
it's
me
a
the
bittersweet.
original.
Yeah, that's why I said bittersweet. Like, yes, it's not. You're right. Sorry. Not only do they both die together or something, but
I don't even know.
To be fair, Dave, I hate we've talked about this with the Mist. I fucking loathe the help just shows up at the last minute.
Exactly.
But yeah, they don't even do that. It's the bitter. It's like, it's fucking weird.
Well, I don't even know if I would even call it bittersweet or whatever they're trying to do, because it's like the third false ending, right? So you have because I remember when I was in theaters and I saw that blood floating in the air when she's on the boat, I went, oh, fuck this, out loud. I got yelled at. But so you go in there, right? And then you're like, oh, she's still down there. And then all of a sudden, here's noise, rescuers come. They weren't stopped by sharks. So now, did the shark actually kill her sister? Did she just die in the fall? Did she get lost in darkness? It just makes her character look like a big fucking idiot. And you're like, okay, they told you to wait. Like, it's fine. She's down there just, Mandy Moore. You're like, so none of it. The sharks weren't even real. At this point, I don't even know if the sharks are real.
There's no need to give her, like Dave just said, a happy ending. That's not the full happy ending. Like, this ending is probably the worst of the three you could do, I guess, to Dave's
exactly.
Either kill them both or let them both live. But to make Mandy Moore now, who didn't have a redemption arc because she didn't save her sister. Maybe that's not a redemption arc. I'm using the wrong term. I don't know the proper term for what she would have done as a turn of being like the hero or getting, a more bold, but like,
I think you could argue we don't even know
everything she does is pointless. Yeah. No, she has a sister. They went into everything up until that point.
Did they?
I mean, the whole thing could be fake.
Well, and to your point,
it's a
Jamie,
dream. She's still in wherever she lives.
My biggest problem is the way they officially ended it, because as Jamie just described, they had this heroic arc for Lisa, and then they pull that back to this bummer ending where she's hallucinating and she's still at the bottom, but then they have the outside force that comes in and saves her. The problem with that being the way they officially end this movie is that negates everything the sisters have done the entire time, because that tells me if they had just sat on their butts at the bottom of the ocean in the cage conserving their air, they would have been fine.
But he does tell them
why did we
that, doesn't he? And they just keep getting out. I mean, they just keep
what's crazy is because they're getting out because of sharks, right? That no one can get through because these sharks killed his other boat boy. Well, now all that's an illusion. These Coast Guard guys just got in there fine. There wasn't even sharks around. So now it's like, well, then why was the fucking sister getting out of the cage?
Yeah, why did I just spend an hour and a half with these?
Right.
That's my biggest issue.
I mean, I get it. If I was stuck in a cage with Mandy Moore and I could either float out into the abyss, I would probably choose the same thing.
It's fair. So one of the questions I had, because I genuinely don't know, and I assume that Eli hasn't, just because you've shared before that the ocean is not your jam. But Jamie, John, are either of you scuba certified?
Nope.
Okay, I'm not either.
Absolutely not.
I'm not either. So I can't speak to the realism of all of that. But it felt very disjointed. Like they had like half truths, or they had like Wikipedia knowledge of scuba diving kind of thing. Whereas somebody like James Cameron, you can count on his diving stuff being accurate because that's that guy's friggin' world. And I recognize, and probably maybe that's what colored this last watch for it, or this year's watch, is we just had the tragedy of the submarine at the Titanic that just imploded. And I'm thinking about that real event that happened and looking at this, and I'm like, there's no way in hell that these two girls that are not trained at all are going to survive for more than 5 minutes in 150 feet of water. Now, that catastrophe that really happened, that was hundreds and hundreds of feet under the ocean. This was 150 feet, which doesn't sound like a lot, but just understanding what I know as a layman about diving, 150 feet is a no joke zone. That's like Everest level.
I think
you got to know what you're doing.
75 is like a danger zone. If you have
the pressure level at that point.
If you're just regular scuba,
like they tell you not to go deeper than 75. Like you have a buffer, but it's not a let's fuck around with that buffer kind of scenario, you know?
Well, and that's again, one of the sent 2 inexperienced girls down.
Exactly. Well, one of the trivia facts that I found, which kind of freaked me out, is the depth you have also impacts how much usable air your tank actually can supply you, because the pressure affects your tank and your gear at the same time. And the piece of trivia I found was the gear that they were using, which was great gear. It was much better gear than Captain Taylor would have ever actually had on this shitty boat. I mean, this was like high level, high tech stuff with the intercoms and PA system and full mask and all that. But anyway, that gear you would be able to breathe for about 15 minutes at that depth.
Well, which is one of my problems too with this movie is, so we talked about all the things that they did do or could do for tension, and one of them was the air. Now, the air thing starts as soon as this movie starts. Now, this movie, as we said, is an hour and a half, which is not that long, but this movie feels like it's 5 hours long. But to that point, literally one of the first things they talk about is how much air they each have. Now, one sister says, I have 80 bar, and that other one says, oh no. And she's like, what? That's like 20 minutes, she says. Okay. And she goes, why? How much do you have? She doesn't want to tell her. And she says 30 bar. Now, my math says 30 is even less than half of 80, which means we're less than 10 minutes. This movie goes on for an hour and a half, and she has 10 minutes of air. Like things like that. I know it's silly, but at the same time, I was thinking that immediately. Like she said that, I said, oh, well, then this movie should be over in 10 minutes because that's all the air she
But it was. You just didn't see it because it was all an hallucination.
And then they send down the other oxygen tanks, which to Dave's point too earlier is like they should have just sat in the cage, because couldn't they have sent those oxygen tanks down like immediately? In a way, like couldn't they right away? I'm sure they had some extra. Yeah, like the first thing when these girls say we're stuck and the thing broke, you say, okay, we're getting the backup, but tanks. Here's some oxygen tanks so you don't die while down there. Sit in the cage. And I get it. That would be a boring movie. Not that this movie is very exciting, but that would be a boring movie. But then you have to find a creative way around it. Not just things that I'm laughing at, like that she has 10 minutes of oxygen, but we're going to go on this movie for an hour.
That's the problem with this movie, right? Because you name your threat, and then you go, oh, none of that was real.
Yeah, so don't worry about it. Here's the big...
Then I'm like, so then in my mind, I go, they got down there, and they go, sit and wait. And the one sister's like, I'm just going to go explore a little bit, because I don't like you anymore. Gets lost in darkness. They're just like, no, the movie. Done. That's it. That's the end movie. And you're like, so like it's like a present, and like you open it's like an empty box, and they're like, but the paper was like, there's a bazooka in here, and you're like, oh man,
yeah,
it's the worst.
My opinion is, and it sounds like at least Jaime, because we landed on this on the descent thing, and I think John did too. I think this movie gets a notch better if you take the Coast Guard out. If it just goes to credits with her on the butt of the ocean.
Yes, because her being saved, but it meaning that everything
negates
before
everything.
Meaning nothing. Yeah, it's just like so. Like the oxygen thing that we're talking about does happen before the hallucination, but then they get the 2 tanks happens during before the hallucination, right?
From my understanding, the 2 tanks is what triggers the hallucination, because he tells her when you change tanks, be very careful.
You're gonna you could hallucinate. You're right. Yeah. Okay, so that's when that's the crossover. So like everything after that point, which is a lot in this movie, it's the whole end of the movie, it's the whole climax,
it's all
the whole
third
exciting
act,
quote unquote, like to a point, is all fake. And it is a very visceral. Then I use that word too many times tonight, but like hallucination, because she gets attacked 2 or 3 times, and like it's like an insane.
Right, and like it gets a smidge better, but my whole problem is even if you just go the ending where she's at the bottom, it completely negates the role of the sister in her death. It's worthless now because I don't know if there's actually sharks.
There are sharks. There were sharks before that. We have to believe.
Well, I mean, what I'm saying is
before the hallucination is really.
Let me rephrase that. I don't know if the sharks was actually even a threat then, or that much of a threat.
No, we don't know, because all the big shark moment. Well, not all, but some of the
90% of them.
Moments.
Yeah. So then, to me, that negates everything with the sister, because you're like, oh, I don't really know.
Well, no, the dude dies before that, right? I'm just trying to put things in pieces here. Like she goes for the flashlight and that dude gets bit or eaten right in front of her. That's before the hallucination, right? Yeah, because that's when Lisa goes out or whatever. And then so the threats that sharks are somewhat of a threat, whether they're right around the cage or whether because the sister getting attacked is not, we don't know what happened to the sister.
And that's the problem. It's so muddy. And like that, even like that dark, it was like, once again, The Descent is just a but like it quite clearly labels, like even with that, like with everything that's going on, right? You are defined, like they're big moments of certain character. It's very defined what happened to them, and like you feel that. Where this, like, it wants that type of ending, but it does it in such a shitty way that it invalidates the character we're probably actually supposed to care about more, because like the majority of the movie is about her. She's got to save her sister, and like she's like kind of like the hero, and then you find out like, oh no, the hero was just a fucking idiot. So it's like, oh, okay, cool, I'm stuck with Mandy more now. Oh great, awesome, all right, cool.
All right, any other thoughts on 47 meters down?
Yeah.
And the irony is, just like Lisa in this cage, the one who's been the most visceral in hating this is the one we all know will be watching it the most often.
It's like I'm hallucinating in the bottom of that cage. Every time I'm like, oh, thank God, I don't have to watch again. I see little shimmers in front of me. I go,
it's happening. All right, so we are going to move on to this week's Dave's Critter Corner. Any guesses what we're talking about this week?
But yeah, no, I have not had much to say on this movie. So I guess anybody that actually cares what I think, sorry, I didn't really have much to think about or say about it, but I do agree with the Descent move. And the other thing, as you guys are talking about, I'm like, the one thing I'm thinking is like, when they drop the tanks, how in the world are, like, I mean, you want to talk about nailing like a horseshoe shot from like 1,000 yards away. It's like, we're going to throw a couple tanks down because, the ocean's not moving. The boat's definitely not moved. Like when they came straight up, it's like, you're not going to come straight up when you're swimming up. But I guess you're hallucinating, so it doesn't really matter.
Yeah, she didn't come.
That's right.
See, it's just like, yeah, she never even came up.
It's like, okay. This movie, this is a movie that really depends on you not thinking a lot.
Yeah.
You put one thread of this. One thread. And it doesn't have to be a very big thread. It could be a loose thread. One little thread and the whole thing just falls apart.
Yep. No, 100%. And I mean, I think if you can turn your brain off, I actually think there's a couple people I know that they would probably love this movie just because they watch movies. They're not thinking about a thing. They're just watching what's happening. Because Dave's opinion in terms of like kind of like it does trigger some emotional responses with like the lack of oxygen and stuff. And I get that, but it's just like, I don't know. To me, it's a very backgroundy movie in the summer. Throw it on. If you absolutely have to watch it. If you're Eli, you're watching it at once a week all summer long, and I feel for you.
I'm in hell.
That's the thing. I think it's like a middle. I know you keep saying it's okay because I think it's a middle movie. It's not fun or campy enough or anything like that to be like a fun shark movie. Like whatever. I don't like Shark Night, but at least Shark Night is silly. Like so it's not fun and whatever to be like a silly shark movie where I would even consider it background like noise or whatever. But it's then it cops out a real ending or any kind of sentimental or emotional impact or anything. So it's like it can't be like a Descent and have any kind of like. So it's just a movie. It just exists in the middle somewhere.
Yeah, I say go watch Deep Blue Sea.
But that's fun. That's on this side.
Right, yeah. Or Jaws. What, like, you want a shark movie? Those are your two shark movies.
I mean, even The Shallows, I would argue.
Yeah, Shallows, I don't know.
I really liked it when I watched it, but I have not watched it again. So
it was fine.
I'm going to. I liked it a lot.
The beginning. And, like, there's parts of the middle I don't like, but at least it's, like there's moments where I'm like, ooh, like, you know, like that, like your butthole clenching, like, where to go? Where this, like, you kind of get like a couple little ones, and then you find out, oh, none of them are real. No.
Yeah.
I had false butthole clenches.
Plus, it has a cute seagull in it. and
It does.
He's
it
a
does.
plus.
Or
And
you know what's
I like Blake Lively more than Mandy Moore. So
everybody does. And you know what's also
Not
a better
everybody,
one? What is that Australian
Even Mandy
shark?
Moore does.
Yeah, even Mandy Moore does. What was that Australian shark movie where like there's a tsunami and there's sharks in the grocery store?
Oh, I've seen it.
Black something or whatever.
I don't know. I can't remember.
Watch that because like once again they steer into it, like they know.
Are you talking about the Requiem?
I don't remember what it's called. No, like they're like a tsunami.
That was that terrible.
And these people are trapped in a grocery store on top of the shelves.
Yeah, I know exactly that scene.
Yeah,
That's the
movie
scene that
was
I
that?
only remember.
I cannot think of that movie.
I'm not sitting here Googling people on top of shelves.
Was it Black Tip or something? I don't know. But it was like that was a like even that, like they kind of steered into like this absurd situation, like what this threat is. Where this, it's and me, my honest opinion, the biggest threat in this film was listen to Mandy Moore whine for one more fucking minute of my life.
It's so funny you keep harping on that, and it's probably because you've seen this movie probably no less than 50 times, so it just gets worse and worse. That didn't really bother me that much. I mean, again, this movie I was so not invested. Like it's just like had some cool sharks. I mean, the whole thing's the inspiration for their dive is so lame.
It really is. Oh my god!
It's like. Really, you're gonna meet two dudes at a bar you took like 7 shots with, and you're gonna go cage diving.
She had the best night of her life. That's what she yells, like on the beach or whatever.
Hey, it could be worse. They could have ended up on a Mayan temple with deadly vines.
Oh my god!
The thing is, the guys don't like. To be like, I know it sounds so dumb, but the guys don't do anything wrong. They invite them for something that they think is like they think they're equipment. I mean, but the girls who see this fucking rusty ass boat that barely can function,
you just go home.
Like, yeah.
You don't. Neither one of them are look like they're poor or don't have money. Like they're blowing money on this vacation. Like I would just be like, oh, your boat looks like a piece of tin metal left out in the rain. No, thank you. Can you tell me where like a real company is? Oh, over there. A good day, two weirdos in your rusty boat.
I mean, there could have been a tale to get on that boat where they're like, all right, guys, this is going to be like $5,000 to go on this like fancy boat. And like, look, we know a guy. And then if they really want to go, but these women, they didn't want to go cage diving the day before, but now they do.
Listen, she literally says it in the movie and it's a joke. It's like a joke, but not a joke because like I'm not saying this to be like, I've gone on enough beach vacations, like Caribbean and wherever. And like, she literally says the people at the resort said, don't do anything with people that I don't remember how she words it that aren't tied to the resort. Yeah. And I knew that even a billion years ago. Like, and yeah, okay, it costs more through the resort, but they're using a fucking reputable company that like
their insurance requires them to vet those people. Yeah.
Like
that boat, that's
just what you do.
That boat looked like it came from the front yard of the people in Wrong Turn. And like, I don't care. Like, and maybe like I get there's like a suspension of disbelief, right? But like at the same time, like in this day and age, what woman or two women are going to someone walk them up to this what I can only describe as a human trafficking boat and be like, yeah, I'll gladly get on this. So you can take me out of shark infested waters. Gladly.
Morons. I will say, like maybe it would have been a better, because I say, like, I know I said the guys do no wrong. And I do want to specify, if anybody's never seen this, which I don't know what, but like, there's nothing sinister about these guys. There really isn't. They're nice guys. They bring them to this boat. Everybody, for all intents and purposes, seems very
locals.
Nice and small and kind of knows what they're doing. They are, but like, maybe it would have been a better movie if it was all these guys' fault. Like if they fucking cut the rope and dropped these girls in the ocean.
It was like a
and it's Shark Night.
Yeah, you're right. But like,
or even make it a nice looking boat, and but the guy that owns it buys like shitty cheap equipment. Like there's a line like, "Oh, did you really buy this shitty cheap equipment?" He's like, "Yeah, because I'm cheap." Something as simple as that, and be like, "Oh, okay." Now I'm not supposed to believe that they're like this weird like Armageddon dinky that they're like floating around on. They're fine with it. Like, oh yeah, definitely. Oh,
they dropped the cage twice. I'm sorry. I have to reiterate that to anybody listening, and that's not the only, but they dropped the cage twice. It's once is bad enough when you're like, oh, fuck, that's how you know what the movie's about, but you're like, oh shit, impending doom. They're sinking to the bottom. But no, we have to do this fucking again more than halfway through the movie. Just that. Because this boat sucks.
It's like the weirdest. Like, I
hope she's suing them when they get out. Hope her family's suing them.
Well, probably not, because she's like, my boyfriend thinks I'm exciting now. I don't know if my sister was real. I was hallucinating.
She's a destination influencer now, is what she is. This is her new life.
Anyway.
# sister's grave.
Wow.
Like, she's like, picture from her tombstone. She's not in there. We couldn't find her. She left the cage for some reason.
Yeah. Well, nobody's finding that body. Well, maybe. I don't know. I guess maybe it's only to that point. I mean, I guess you said a search crew. Maybe it's only 47 meters down. I don't know. Maybe they get a lot of lights on. They could find if she wasn't eaten by others.
They certainly found her quick enough.
They found her right away. They just went straight down.
Let me ask you a question, right? You're those rescue people. You get down there. She's on one there. Do you go?
I know. You want to leave Mandy Moore in the cage. All right.
We could just say we didn't find it.
Wow.
I never knew people didn't like Mandy Moore this much. I thought people really liked her.
I don't know.
Had no opinion on her.
If you know this about me, I'm a unique individual.
Strong, you have strong opinions.
I have as strong an opinion about Mandy Moore as I do about Matthew Modine. I mean, neither one of them's really on my radar at all. But
no, I don't. I know. I'm assuming she won some Emmys for This Is Us, but
yeah.
But I mean, was she the one that carried that series?
Yeah, I think people thought she did. Well,
I think it was really Milo Vugala, or how you say his last name. The guy from Heroes, who I love.
Watch it.
That I can't say his name, but I love him. There's also that other famous actor who went on to do that shitty Predator movie. Where there's the Predator dog, that may be one of the worst things I've ever seen in my life. I think they really carried it.
Yeah. Fair enough. Well, as I started to mention earlier, Dave's Critter Corner this week is on the great white shark. And I did reach out to Jaime because this is an animal she loves. So I hope I represent her properly. If I don't, jump in here at any time, obviously. So the great white shark have a few fun facts that I'm going to share with you about this creature. It's the largest great white shark ever recorded. Her name is Deep Blue, and she was over 20 feet long. So 20 feet is the maximum we've seen in a real great white shark, which if you put that into terms, that's about the size of a school bus. So it's decent. That's still pretty big. That's the scale of probably the size, would you say, of this guy's 10 rust bucket boat?
I will say this: last week they actually think they found one bigger.
Did they?
They got a tracker on there.
Well, if that's TikTok information, we'll
it was on the news. They hit it with a tracker. Now they're following it again because they think it could be between 36 and 40.
The
news.
The great white shark, it is the largest of the predatory sharks. Obviously, there are whale sharks and basking sharks and other sharks that are bigger than great whites. But as far as the predatory carnivore sharks, it's the big boss. Other than the Meg, which we all obviously know is really down there somewhere underneath the salt level. So they are estimated to live, and I didn't know this till I started looking up some fun facts. They estimated to live, they have about the same lifespan as humans. 70, 80 years is what they estimate, and we still really don't know how long they live, but that's the estimate that they have. Great whites have serrated teeth that can get to be about 6.5 inches long, and they have 4 and 5 rows of them. They lose about 1,000 teeth a year, and they just replace them with the next row of teeth. Another fun fact that I didn't know is that they do not chew at all. They tear off big chunks and swallow them whole. That's how they eat, because when you have a mouthful of buzzsaw blades, apparently you don't have to chew. You chew as you bite. So
and cameras, Dave. They also eat cameras.
They eat like most people do at a Golden Corral.
Just inhale.
Just suck it in.
Another fun fact about great whites is they are live bears, meaning that they do bear living pups, as they're called in sharks. And a female can have between 2 and 10 pups in one litter. So that's a little baby great whites running around there. They're actually very timid. They're not conflict aggressive animals at all. They're very timid animals for the most part. They rarely initiate attacks, but they do react aggressively when they feel attacked or threatened. That's how most of the attacks or bites happen. They are opportunistic feeders. We talked about this with black bears. So they do sample bite to see what they can eat, what they can't eat. They very rarely attack and continue attack. They'll do these what's called bump and runs, where they'll hit something and then swim off. And if it's still there, they'll come back and take a bite. If it's still there, then they'll eat. That's kind of the way that they eat in most cases. I didn't know this, but they are considered loner animals, but they do have a social hierarchy. Like during mating season and stuff, when they get together, they do communicate socially. They are female dominated as a species. So the females kind of run the roost when they get together for mating season. Most of the attacks on humans are misidentified prey attacks, meaning that they think they're attacking a seal or a dolphin or something else that's readily available as their prey. And they are such efficient hunters that, and again, something Dave didn't know about gray whites, but they only eat about once.
Wait. You went out. Dave went out.
Am I back?
Still out.
We can't hear you, Dave.
Can't hear you.
Okay. I'll wait and I'll just keep talking until you all can hear me again.
Nope, can't hear you. Hey, if you want, you pretend to talk and I'll keep talking.
That's what I'm doing. I'm just going to
there you
now
go.
You're back.
I'm just going to keep talking until I come back. So I think I got to the hunting fact. Is that right?
Yep.
So they are, another fact that I didn't know about them is that they are such efficient hunters, and their metabolisms are so efficient that if they get one of their preferred foods, like a lion seal or a dolphin or something like that, they only have to eat like once every 3 months. Then they're good for like 3 months. So they're very efficient animals. And then the last fact I have on them is great white sharks are not officially on the endangered list, but they are categorized as vulnerable to extinction due to the main things that great whites are vulnerable to extinction because of are bycatch from commercial fishing. Great whites can get hung up in nets when they are feeding on the fish, and then these huge mile-long nets can catch them up and they can be destroyed through bycatching. The other one that is more heinous, in my opinion, is they are hunted by fin hunters and teeth hunters who will harvest the fins and teeth and then release the rest of the animal. Trophy fishing is another big thing that is makes them vulnerable, because obviously a great white is considered the paragon of predators of the ocean. So for sport fishing, they are considered a big trophy. So for trophy fishing, even illegal trophy fishing, they can be harvested that way. And then territorial threats because of our fishing and overfishing of certain sections of the ocean where they breed, or, where they have their mating areas that they come into because we are setting up commercial fishing or other disruptive stuff like drilling and stuff like that. We can disrupt their breeding cycles. So just because they're not on the endangered species list does not mean that they are not endangered. They are certainly listed as vulnerable. So we should think about our buddies, the great whites. And again, I'll reiterate, as far as all the great white movies I've ever seen, I think this movie, whatever you think of the movie itself, does a really good job of using them as an animal who is being an animal. I don't think there is a evil subplot to the sharks in this. I think they behave in ways. Now, do they attack more often than a real great white would? Probably. But the way they attack and their behavior, I don't think is outside the bounds of what I understand of them. Not that I'm an expert anyway. Any other opinions?
I'm a little disappointed in you, because you left off one of the coolest facts about the great white. They are one of the largest breaching fishes in the ocean.
Oh, when the tornadoes come and they get sucked up in the tornado?
You son of a bitch. No, the fact that they jump in the air, and the larger great whites can get such speed that they can jump 16, 20 feet in the air.
Air jaws.
And the fact that you didn't bring that up just makes me sad.
I have the most important fact. They're adorable. That's all.
They're my favorite animal. Do you know that, Jaime?
They're my second favorite. They're
my first animal.
So close. I know. They're up there. I go back and There's a reason. My number one is a wolf, but it's got more personal reasons. But shark is right behind. Great white shark.
Great white shark, my favorite.
Yeah,
I mean,
right
I love sharks, so my favorite animals, but the great white's my favorite shark. My second favorite shark is
hammies.
The goblin shark.
Oh, the goblin.
What about hammies?
Hammerheads are okay. Like they're aggressive. They're like bull sharks.
So silly though, but they're so
not
cute.
The silliest. You know what my third favorite shark is?
Isn't the goblin the silliest?
Yeah, that'd be great because they live in dark waters. Would you imagine being Mandy Moore and you're already afraid of everything, and then that fucking thing comes out? But my third favorite shark is the most adorable of the sharks, and it even has adorable little bite, and that's the cookie cutter shark. Because when they have these weird
that's the one in Shark Night that Eli was pissed off about.
Yeah, they have like weird little buck teeth, and when they they only like take the skin, they just eat skin. Unless you're a Shark Night and you make them seem like piranhas for some stupid fucking reason.
Whale sharks are cute too.
Yeah, I like whale sharks. Also, another fun fact for you: great whites, you're right, are one of the only one of the few sharks that do live births, but the ones that lay eggs are called mermaid purses. Shark eggs are called mermaid purses because if you look at them, they look like little purses. That's another fun fact for you. I love sharks. I got all the shark facts.
Yeah.
So, Mr. Lover of Great White Sharks, what are we following up this Great White Shark movie on Campfire Tales?
Well, as you know, this movie isn't based on anything, but I was watching, I was thinking, what do we do? And the first thing when I watch this movie I think of is Mandy Moore being hysterical. That I think,
as in hilarious?
No. As in hysteria, as in nonsense. And then I was like, oh, I know what we'll do this episode on. We'll talk about some of the greatest cases of mass hysteria where people do some weird shit.
Mm-hmm. People are the worst.
Or whatever. It's just the worst. And you know who's part of people? Mandy Moore. That's my case.
Well, your facts are stone solid. So
yeah.
Logic is sound.
Yeah.
Well, we got that to look forward to next week. We do thank you for listening. Hope you enjoyed this. If you love this movie, don't feel bad. I mean, like I said, I watch this movie about once a year. Now, I totally recognize its problems, but the things it does right, I think it does really right. I enjoy it. So, but if you don't like it, there's plenty of opinion on here too that aligns with what you've got going on there too. And I'm not going to defend things that this movie has problems on because it's got problems. But if you enjoyed the episode, we do ask that you subscribe, rate the show, give us a comment. Let us know what you think. What's your favorite shark? Let us know what your favorite shark is out there. If you want to learn more about the podcast, you can go to our website, which is thewickedwild.com, where we have book reviews, movie reviews. We've got some merch on there. We've also got some information about each of the hosts that make this show the magic that it is. If you want to follow us on social media, you've got two options, which are Twitter at WickedWildWeAre and Slasher, which is the horror-only community, which is growing. They just officially announced the launch of Slasher. If you go to the website, it's official now. And you can find us on Slasher also at Wicked Wild We Are. So join us there if you are part of that social media community. If you are interested in seeing our shining faces, you can watch our podcast reviews on YouTube. Just search thewickedwild.com or the Wicked Wild Podcast, and you can find us on YouTube. If you have any questions or feedback or thoughts or anger, rage even, that you want to share with me, you can send me an email at podcast, podcast at thewickedwild.com. And that's really all I got. Eli, you got anything else you want to share?
Yeah, got a little fun shark fact for you.
Okay.
Did you know that shark teeth, the reason they wash up on the beaches is they petrify, but not all shark teeth have the ability to petrify, to get minerals in it to harden. Just certain sharks, and great whites are one of those sharks.
Well, just a fun fact, and I don't know, I have guesses, but I don't know about my other host, but I had my first real life shark tooth find in the wild 2 years ago. Like I found my first shark tooth.
Wow.
Went and got it categorized, and it was a bull shark. So apparently bull sharks are also sharks that
bull sharks are
Those
one of the
terrifying ones.
Few sharks. They're one of the most aggressive shark breeds, but they're one of the few breeds that can switch from salt and freshwater, and they are one of two shark breeds that are found in the Mississippi River.
They can get you everywhere, basically.
Yeah.
Aren't they, not to go on this tangent, and is this a rumor? Weren't they actually the inspiration for Jaws? Was it a real
they
Jaws
were the
story?
sharks, bull sharks,
So like,
kill a little boy.
But they're not as impressive as a great white
The
shark.
other shark found in the Mississippi River is the angel shark, which is one of the least aggressive shark breeds.
Oh,
and
because it's an
looks
angel.
like a big dumb angel. Yeah.
A big dumb.
Not like an angel fish, because angel fish are kind of
No, it looks like a big dumb. Like it looks more like, it kind of looks like you'll look at it. It's got big dumpy like stupid wings and stuff. It looks stupid.
All right.
Anyway,
and I found this one in Panama City Beach, so that would make sense.
I found my first one in Outer Banks in 2008.
I never found any because I'm kind of never going in the ocean more than.
To find them. Another little fun fact for everybody, because I'm on a fun fact roll. Best time to find shark teeth on the beach is at dawn or day, not dawn. Dawn, daybreak. No, that's not dawn. Dawn's
like
at
washed up.
High tide or low tide?
Low tide.
Low tide.
Like would they wash up on the beach?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
So like you get that right when the sun's coming up. Not dawn. Can't lift that. Right when the dawn's coming up, or dawn. I keep saying, my God. Right when the sun's coming up, is the best time to like around like 5:30.
That is dawn. You are right. Dusk is at night.
Oh, thank you. Yeah. Listen, it's been a really long. Like,
all right.
Listen. Do you know how much digging into aliens I've had to do the last couple of weeks? Like, people don't even know.
For those that don't watch our YouTube, Eli is pretty much what's his face from Airplane at this point, with a cup of coffee in one hand and 3 cigarettes in the other. Yep. Classy eyed. He's stressed out, man.
Every time like there's a news break, like I have it set on my phone to get the alerts for a news break, and like I'm like, oh my God, it's like crack. I'm like, I gotta read it. I'm looking like, wait, who's this person? And I'm like, Googling it. I am literally one bad day away from having the strings and the thumbtacks and the boards. I may buy a
Charlie Day. You're the Charlie Day.
I may buy a printer just so I keep this all straight.
Okay,
it's a good idea.
Anything else y'all want to promote? Anything else exciting happening in your lives? All right. Well, thank you for listening. And our last piece of advice is that you get out there and get yourself lost.
So Mandy Moore can't find you. Got him.